year ago, I made a video talking about my experience being a 40-year-old virgin, and a lot has happened since then. I actually got into a short-lived relationship that lasted about 2 weeks, I think. So that's kinda progress, I guess. But a lot of things are still the same. I've still never done the deed, so I am still a virgin, and it's not by choice. I very much do want to do it, and I have wanted to for a long time. But I figured I'd give y'all an update on my current life as a 40-year-old virgin 1 year after the first video. And just like last time, there's some things that I think the movie, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, gets horribly wrong, and there's some other things I think the movie gets right. So I want to talk about that. I didn't even realize it at the time I made the first video, but there's this one small part of the movie that's actually very realistic. It's easy to miss, but it was like I was watching and cringing at my own life in real time. And I think probably most chronically lonely men can relate. So I'm going to be talking about that. By the way, I was actually 36 when I made the first video. I'm 37 now, so not technically a 40-year-old virgin yet, but I'm pretty sure I will be soon enough. I don't see anything changing on that front. And for all my regular viewers that already know all about everything with the Indian girl and LaFonda and all that, there's actually something that happened recently that I haven't told anyone about yet, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, let's get into it. In the opening of the movie, they introduce Steve Carell's character, Andy, and it's interesting because they make it a point to show that he's a very boring guy. He's got this strict routine he follows every morning. He works out at the same time every day, but his workout is feminine. It's not a cool workout. Then he cooks himself a somewhat elaborate breakfast every day that looks like something June Cleaver would make. And they also make it a point to show that he rides a bicycle to work instead of a car. And they show how his apartment is full of action figures and other nerdy memorabilia. So from the start, they're making it clear that the reason Andy has never done the deed, it's not because he's ugly. It has nothing to do with his physical appearance. It's just his personality. It's just because he's a nerd. He's boring. That's why he's a 40-year-old virgin. And honestly, I really hate this shit. Because they always depict it in the same way. Every male character that is unsuccessful with women in any movie or TV show, they're always depicted as these stereotypical nerds. They're always these boring guys that collect comic books and they act like your grandmother. It's just not true. In reality, there is a lot of diversity amongst the chronically lonely male population. It's not just a bunch of stereotypical boring nerds, and it's not just guys with poor social skills either. But from the perspective of a normal person that has a normal relationship history, so probably all women and half of all men, they just can't understand the fact that personality actually is not the reason some men can never get laid. It's actually looks that is the main reason for some men. It's probably looks more often than it is anything personality related. But they always depict the chronically lonely male character as being this nerdy, boring, goody two-shoes type, because the only way most people can wrap their head around a man being 40 years old without ever having done the deed, they think it's got to be his personality. That's the only possibility in these people's minds. And if it is looks, then it's never like a facial deformity or just a regular unattractive face that's the issue. It's always played off like the character is only unattractive because they don't take care of themselves. Now, with that said, having a so-called boring personality and all these nerdy hobbies like Andy does in the movie, yeah, that will hurt a man's chances, even if he's not unattractive. So I'm not saying the character is totally unrealistic, but I just hate that it's always the same exact archetype. Anytime Hollywood tries to depict male loneliness, it's always the same. I don't know if it's because these Hollywood scriptwriters are just blissfully unaware of what life is like for below average looking men, or maybe it's just too uncomfortable to think about it. I don't know. One aspect of being a chronically lonely man that I think the movie does not address properly is the way Andy copes with his situation. He doesn't even watch adult content at all. I can tell you from personal experience, when you've been alone for this long and you don't have any support system, it's really hard to resist going online and looking for that certain type of video. But thanks to Urge, you don't have to be alone in this struggle. With Urge's built-in community, you can connect anonymously with other real-life people that are all working together to transform their lives. Right when you join, you will be partnered with 3 people your age that will be side by side with you, so you're not alone overcoming this. Every week they have speakers come in that have overcome this problem already to pour wisdom onto you because at the end of the day, your circle of influence is the most important thing. Urge helps you quit porn and take back control of your life, and it's really simple how it works. Whenever you get that familiar urge, you just open up the app, hit the panic button, and it'll walk you through it in real time so you can just get on with your day with no regrets. And listen, streak counters and content blockers have been around for a while, but Urge is different. Urge is built around a 100-day program that is designed to help you understand why you have this problem in the first place so you can learn to cope in a healthy way. They use clinically backed methods so you can keep the promises you make to yourself. Hit the link in the description or the pinned comment to try Urge today, and make sure you use promo code LOSER for a special discount. Thank you to Urge for sponsoring this video. I actually think the movie does a really good job with some of the social interactions between Andy and his coworkers, especially in the first half of the movie with the way they show some of the struggles with what it's like trying to socialize and connect with people as a high inhibition male. There's a scene early on where one of Andy's coworkers asks him how his weekend was, and then Andy tells this long, detailed story about how he made an egg salad sandwich, which obviously is very boring to listen to. Then after that, that coworker tells the rest of the main cast how he thinks Andy is a serial killer, and he really doesn't want to hang out with him.
How about Andy?
No. He's a really nice guy and all, but I'm pretty sure that he is a serial murderer.
And this is all because Andy is he's so boring and he's unable to connect with other people like a normal human being. Let me tell you, as a guy that has had 0 relationships and 0 social life for most of my life, this part of the movie felt very realistic. I've always hated whenever someone asks me how my weekend went, or they ask me if I have any big plans over the weekend. I never know what to say, because the truth is always something similar to Andy's egg salad sandwich story. I just don't do anything interesting. I mean, maybe I get up to some things that are interesting to me. For example, back when I was employed, I would sometimes work on little coding projects, just trying to learn how to code. Or I would maybe try a new restaurant on occasion. Always takeout, of course. I didn't have anyone to go places with. But I can totally relate to Andy's egg salad sandwich story. You know, going out, buying all the ingredients and everything, that would be an exciting weekend for me. But whenever someone would ask me what I did over the weekend, I would almost always just say, nothing much. I did try a couple times to give more of an answer. I remember one time I told a guy at work that I tried falafel for the first time, which truthfully, for me, that was an interesting thing that I did over the weekend, but the response wasn't good. The guy was just like, okay. And then he paused. So he was like, okay. Oh, that's it? So I said, yeah. And he goes, oh, cool. Actually, it was very similar to how Seth Rogen reacted to the egg salad sandwich story in the movie.
It's a good weekend.
Sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was fine.
Cool.
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 I know there are chronically lonely men out there that probably do have much more interesting weekends than what I'm used to, but I'd be willing to bet my experience is pretty common amongst guys like me. I mean, when you don't have any friends and you don't have a social life, you're probably not going to be doing a whole lot of exciting things over the weekend. So when people ask me those kind of questions, Like, I get that it's just basic small talk. You know, people just want to cut the tension, maybe build some rapport. But for me, the way I answer that question just makes things worse. I can either say nothing much, which sounds like I'm being dismissive, or I can actually tell the truth, which most weekends would be something along the lines of, I played video games and then I watched YouTube videos until I passed out in my computer chair. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation. Even on the rare occasion that I did do something interesting, it's usually something that most people probably wouldn't find interesting, like a coding project or something. In fact, I did tell two of my coworkers about a little game I made one time, and that didn't go over very well. Another thing I think the movie does really well is how you can tell a lot of the time Steve Carell's character is just saying whatever he thinks would be the normal thing to say in a situation. He's always just trying to act like a normal person, probably because he's had bad experiences in the past when he did try expressing himself.
You need to get past that because no ass is worth thinking that much about. I always say.
This is something I think a lot of guys in my position have in common. You could call it masking if you want. I know that's something autistic people do. I'm not diagnosed as being on the spectrum, by the way. I may or may not be slightly autistic. I don't really know. But I do know that I have an overwhelming fear of actually expressing my true self, which is definitely at least partially because of bad experiences I've had in the past. Maybe it's also just genetic to some degree, but I always feel like I'm acting in social situations. I'll do things like I'll use expressions that don't feel natural to me. I'll try to force myself to laugh when something happens that I think other people would find humorous, even if I don't. And it's really exhausting too. I think a lot of people don't realize this, but it's exhausting because I'm constantly trying to read everybody's expressions and then I'm trying to put a situationally appropriate expression on my own face, and I'm just guessing with this shit. Nothing about socializing comes naturally to me, and I'm pretty sure most people can tell. I try my best to act normal, but I don't think it actually works. And it's just a snowball effect of social isolation because I have to try to act normal since I don't actually have any experience in being normal. So I have to try to fit in, but I'm not good at masking or whatever you want to call it. So I probably give off the impression that I have something to hide, because I do. I'm trying to hide how big a loser I am, but it just doesn't work. One thing about being an older man in this predicament that I think largely goes unnoticed, it's the fact that for a lot of us, it's not just that we have no experience with women. Most chronically lonely men also don't have much experience with regular friendship, because all the same things that make a man unattractive to women, like being timid or shy or ugly, those are also things that make it harder to make friends with other dudes. Guy friends probably will give you a bit more latitude with your looks. Like, obviously, you can be a below average looking man and still make friends, but it is going to be more difficult. Whether you want to admit it or not, most guys don't want to be friends with another guy that is significantly less attractive than they are. But the bigger thing is all the unattractive personality factors. Nobody wants to hang out with you when you're lame and boring. Plus, it's hard to make friends with other single men when everybody knows you're going to scare all the women away. But it's even harder to make friends with married guys, which is most guys around my age, because they usually just got their own things going on. I mean, I think most people by their late 30s, early 40s, people just aren't really looking for new friends anymore. Everyone's either already in a friend group or they're just concerned with their own family. So I appreciate that they make it a point in the movie to show how Andy seems to be really happy that some of his coworkers start taking an interest in his life.
Do you realize that this is the first time we've spoken for more than, 30 seconds?
Uh-huh.
It's kind of nice.
There's even a whole montage dedicated to showing how much fun he's having when he goes out and gets drunk with the boys for the first time. And I'm pretty sure it is meant to be kind of the secondary plot of the movie. I think Andy making friends for the first time is meant to parallel his having success with women for the first time. Because it even shows him smoking pot out of an apple, which is kind of a traditional coming-of-age activity that a lot of boys experience in their youth. Kind of like how having your first romantic experiences is also a typical coming-of-age milestone. So I do appreciate that aspect of the film. I kind of had a similar experience myself over the past year since I made that original video. About a month after I made that video, I finally ended my very long unemployment streak. I got a job at a car wash making $11 an hour plus tips. Obviously not the best opportunity considering I have a freaking master's degree in computer science from one of the top-ranked universities in the entire world, but hey, that's what I can get, apparently. So one of my coworkers at this car wash was this guy named Jamal, and he decided to try to help me lose my V-card, which I'm only just now realizing is very similar to what happened in The 40-Year-Old Virgin. But anyways, Jamal and me became friends, I guess, or the closest thing I had to a friend anyways. We only hung out 3 times outside of work, but even so, he was probably my closest friend. Maybe my closest friend that I've ever had. But he was trying to hook me up with this hood rat chick he knows, and she was down. It was looking like this was actually going to happen. And then all of a sudden, the owner of the car wash's niece, who also worked there, basically she found out that I was going to be hooking up with this hood rat chick. Then she came up to me all of a sudden and she pretty much demanded that I go out with her instead. This woman was fresh off the boat from India, by the way, and I didn't even know her very well. I had only talked to her a few times. And also, now that I'm saying all this out loud, it really is surreal that this shit happened to me. It almost sounds like some harem anime shit. But anyways, so I started dating the Indian girl. By the way, she's only a few years younger than me. I think from some of the comments on other videos where I talked about her, people seemed to think she was a lot younger. But yeah, we started dating. I had my first girlfriend, and, looking back, even with how everything turned out, especially with this latest development, which I'll be getting to soon, looking back, it is crazy what an absolute high that was when we first started dating. And the first time we held hands and everything, it felt really nice. It was kind of like a feeling of relief that I was finally experiencing a romantic connection. But at the same time, it was just nice to think that somebody cared about me. I knew that it was already too late for me to become normal by that point. I missed out on the crucial developmental milestones of having your first love and everything when you're still in adolescence. I missed that, so I knew the whole time that I am still permanently defective in certain ways. Having a girlfriend at age 36, that's not going to fix me, but still, it was a good feeling. For a brief period there, maybe about a week, starting from the point we started dating, I just felt like, okay, now I can finally relax. As if I had been pushing around this huge wheelbarrow full of anxiety my whole life, that more shit got shoveled into with each passing day, and then finally I didn't have to push it anymore. I could just relax. I actually got a girlfriend. Like the thing that I've been wanting, the thing that I've been needing. I got it. It's like I achieved it. Well, here's where it gets bad. So from the very start, like literally the first time we hung out, she told me that she was waiting for marriage, and I was more or less fine with that. In a way, I actually liked that because in my mind, that meant that she must be a virgin too. So I thought that was great. We ended up going on our first big date, I guess you could say, or that's what it was supposed to be. And I made a whole video after it happened where I went into all the excruciating detail about that night. But basically what happened was we ran into this other couple at the restaurant, and I guess the guy was a colleague of my girlfriend. They were both grad students in the same program. So my girlfriend asked them to join us at our table, which I did not want. But then it was like all throughout dinner, this woman that is supposed to be my girlfriend, she's just, all her attention is focused on this other guy, as if he's just the most interesting and funny person to have ever lived. And then after dinner, we're sitting in the car and she's all like, I have to tell you something. So then she proceeds to tell me that she actually had a one-night stand with this guy. And she said that was the only time she's ever done it. But she told me all about how much he hurt her because after they did it, he just kind of ghosted her, I guess, even though they would still see each other on campus. But yeah, as you can imagine, that just ruined everything. And just to be clear, it's not the fact that she had done it before that's what bothered me. The problem was that she gave it up that easily to this other guy, while with me, she's telling me I have to wait till marriage. And then she's obviously still interested in this guy. It was obvious from how she was acting at dinner. So that ruined the whole thing. Then at that point, I had to decide, do I just accept being in a sexless relationship with a woman that obviously would rather be with someone else? Or do I have some respect for myself and break it off? So I chose the latter. I broke up with her, and I'm glad I did. That was definitely the right decision. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks after we broke up, I found out that she was, I'm like 95% sure. She was cheating on me the whole time. Not with that guy, though. She was cheating on me with a professor from her school, actually. And not even a young, cool professor. Because theoretically, a professor could be around the same age as her, but this one wasn't. He looked like he's probably in his 50s, if not older. So, yeah, I don't know really what she wanted from me in the first place. I kind of think she just really wanted to get permanent residence in the United States because she's just here on a student visa. I don't know how these things work, but what it looked like to me was that she was trying to use me and the professor guy. I think she was using both of us, hoping that one of us would marry her maybe, and that might help her get to stay in the US. I don't know that that's the case, but that would make a lot of sense with the way that, looking back, it was like she never really showed me much affection. It felt good at the time because up to that point, I was completely starved of human affection. So even just holding her hand felt like a fucking waterfall of love. But really, she never was very affectionate with me. And the whole thing started off very weird. She just approached me out of the blue, demanding that I go out with her. And when I think about it now, after everything that's happened, yeah, I think maybe it was all calculated. I think maybe she realized I was vulnerable. She thought I would be a good candidate for being the chump that would help her stay in the country while not actually getting any affection in return. Because I was obviously this shy, meek loser that was desperate for female affection. So she pounced on that before I could go with LaFonda. That's the hood rat chick that Jamal was trying to hook me up with. That's not her real name, obviously, but yeah. So that's how my first relationship went. Probably the only relationship I'll ever have. Like, it's more than just it's almost definitely that's going to be the case. So I'm still not any closer to losing my V card, and I never really was any closer. And in a way, I'm actually worse off now because all that experience did for me is it gave me some false hope for a little bit, a little bit of false hope that things were actually starting to look up when really it wasn't. But that's not all. it gets worse, if you could believe that. It gets a lot worse. So my friend Jamal that I met at the car wash, we hung out 3 times. I even went over to his house one time and we just hung out and played video games, which was pretty cool, I thought, because all my life, I never really had any friends. There was a guy back in high school that I was kind of friends with, but then he ended up using me to give him a ride to some girl's house, and then he was all like, "Oh, you can't come in. I'll call you later." When before that, he was acting like we were all going to be hanging out at this girl's house together. But anyways, so Jamal was the closest thing I ever had to an actual friend. So just hanging out, playing video games with one of the bros, like that was like my dream hangout scenario, you know? Like that was the kind of thing I've daydreamed about, having a friend like that. And I actually experienced that hangout session and it was pretty cool. And I felt good about that. So Jamal was the closest thing I ever had to an actual friend, but I hadn't talked to him in a while since just the other day. So I kind of figured that our friendship just petered out, which I expected. We didn't really have that much in common other than the fact we worked together. But I think I forgot to mention this. I actually got fired from that job after I started dating the owner's niece because the owner had a problem with that, I guess. But yeah, so I kind of thought I'd probably never hear from Jamal again. And I did try texting him once a couple months back just to keep in touch, but it just ended up being really awkward. But now, just the other day, Jamal texted me out of the blue and it seemed like he was just trying to catch up at first. He was like, "What's up, bro? You been good?" And we had a couple messages back and forth. Then he sent me a message like, "You don't care nothing about the Indian girl anymore, right?" Except he didn't call her the Indian girl. He just put her name. But I replied and I was like, "No, she's for the streets." Then he hit me with a fucking bombshell of a tidbit. He told me, he was like, "All right, I was just checking because I finally cracked her." So I texted back to ask what he meant by that because my understanding of the terminology was that if you say you cracked a girl, that means you hit it. But that wouldn't make any sense because this was my ex we're talking about. And Jamal is my friend. So how does that make any sense? You know, he never seemed like a guy that would do something like that. So I figured he's using some kind of black people lingo that I'm not down with yet. You know, like I just don't know what he's saying because he's done that before. So I texted back and I was like, "What do you mean? I don't know what cracked means." And he replied, I don't feel like actually looking at the messages right now, but basically he said it was exactly what it sounded like. He said he slept with her. And I just didn't respond after that. He texted 2 more times. He was like, "Bro, you're not mad, are you? We cool?" Then he even tried calling me a few hours after that, but I didn't answer, and I'm not going to if he ever tries reaching out again. Like I'm done. I'm done with that friendship, you know. I mean, I think it should be obvious that that's not cool. You know, she's free to do whatever she wants. I don't want to have anything to do with her at this point. But obviously, it's still not cool for someone that is supposed to be my friend, who I thought was my only friend, like to do something like that. That's not cool. That's not okay. So, yeah, that's how it's going now. 1 year after I made the first video. Back then, I was a nearly 40-year-old man with 0 relationship experience and very little friendship experience either. And now I'm still a nearly 40-year-old man, except now I have ever slightly more relationship experience. but I still never actually got any real affection. Plus, my only friend fucking did what he did. I made my first friend of my life, and then I got my first girlfriend of my life. And then a little bit of time passes, I break up with the girl, and my first friend fucked my first girlfriend. Like, I don't know that this actually happened because Jamal is a bullshitter. He is the kind of guy that always talked a lot of shit. But I don't know why he would even think that I would be okay with that. So I guess the one real improvement I've had in my life over the past year is now I am starting to make a bit more income from this channel. So that is a really good thing. Hopefully that will last. But yeah, nothing good ever happens whenever I put myself out there, or whatever you want to call it. People always tell me to get a job, practice socializing, make some friends, get out of the house, etc. And you see what happens. This is how it always happens for me. I honestly think at this point in my life, I'm comfortable enough just being alone most of the time. I don't need a lot of money. I think I get enough socializing just from talking to my parents and taking care of my little 2-year-old cousin. And every now and then I'll spend some time with other family members. And I think that's enough for me at this point. I don't really have any motivation to strive for anything further on the relationship front. I do still have some ambitions with what I want to do with this channel. So that's where I'm focusing my energy. From this point on, moving forward, that is my focus. I'm not trying to think about what could have been or how am I going to finally get out of this predicament? How am I finally going to not end up being the 40-year-old? Like, that is not on my mind right now. But yes, it's something that crops up and is going to crop up in my mind from time to time. Like, you're going to think about these things when you are this big of a loser. Sometimes I'll think of it and I'll feel bad about it, but I'm not actively trying to rectify that situation. Okay? I'm just going to be focusing on doing what I feel like and what so many of you in the comments tell me is something that some of you actually get some value out of, even if it's just entertainment when you listen to my videos. I'm going to be focusing on that. Okay? That's all I'm going to focus on. I think that's a good use of my time. By the way, I just got back from a family vacation with my mom and my cousin and some other family, and that was just further proof that getting out of the house and touching grass just is not something I really need in my life at this point. I mean, sure, to some degree, it is nice to get out of the house every now and then, but well, I don't want to say too much about it now. I'm actually going to be making a video soon where I'm going to be talking about all the things that happened on that trip. So stay tuned for that. And if you found anything I said here insightful, or if any of this resonates with you, then please consider watching some of my other videos. There's also some secret videos you can watch for free on Patreon. Videos YouTube doesn't want you to see. So check that out. No sign up required. You can just watch the videos. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.